Hello and welcome to our how-to video on the Project Financial series in Mission Control. Mission Control offers several ways for you to capture your financials using different rates, and these include the standard, role-based, skill-based, and rate card. In this video, we'll be exploring how the skill-based rates are set up and how the financials are derived from it. So the skill-based option allows you to set an hourly rate for each individual role for all of the skills that are assigned to them. So if a project uses the skill-based option, it will utilize the rates on the different skills that are assigned to the person within that project. So the skill rates accounts for the action owner, the contributor, and the project member on the time block. So that's taking into account the hours scheduled, hours remaining, as well as hours completed dollar values. So these rates are used to determine the billable and cost values in your project, and you are able to specify whether the project uses skill-based for billable or cost or both rate types. So you could have a project where the billable values are being calculated using the skill rates, while the cost values are being calculated using the role-based rates. We'll also take a look at how you can override the default rates that you have set up for certain time periods, and this is where that rate adjustment feature comes in. And there's two different ways, different scenarios that it could apply to. So you can make a rate adjustment from the role record to override skill rates for a specified time period. And this is useful to track when the skill-based rates for an individual or a role have changed over time. And this would apply to all projects in general and can serve as sort of the default. Another use case is when a role must be charged at a different rate or different rates for the different skills within a project, within a specific project, and you have the option to either set a specific time frame on that rate adjustment for it. So we'll also discuss in what scenarios you may need to use the forced financials recalculation. Before we jump into the demo, we'll have a quick look at the priorities that are used within the skill-based rates and how the rate is determined. So the first priority, it checks to see if there's any skill-based override rate adjustments with a specific date range. So this is basically creating rate adjustments from the project. And this rate adjustment will only apply to that one project. The next priority is skill-based override without a date range. So any rate adjustment that was created from the project, skill-based project that is, and it only applies to that one project as long as that doesn't have a date. This is that next priority. The third priority, if the previous priorities aren't available, it's a skill-based with a date range. So rate adjustment that was created from the role record for skills that are assigned to someone. And this applies to all projects in general and for the selected date range that you have. And this sort of serves as a default for that time period. Then you have the rates from the skill assignment to the role. And this is really the starting point usually for skill assignments. This is the very base rate that you initially start off with. Then you have role-based with the date range. So this is a rate adjustment from the role. So if it doesn't find any of the skill rates above up until priority 4, then in priority 5, it'll look for rate adjustments from the role record. Those in general would apply to all projects. So that's sort of the fallback for it. And then after that, if it doesn't find any rate adjustments, it then will look for the rates on the role record itself. All right, that's the priority. We'll have a look at the different priorities here and how those are calculated. And so let's jump into the demo. All right, so I have a project here that is using the skill-based billing rate and cost rate. So if I go ahead and edit the project, so we're looking at the billing rate and cost rate fields here. Both are set to skill-based, but it doesn't have to be this way. You can choose to mix it up. So for example, you might want to calculate the billable dollar values using the skill base and the cost dollar values using the role base. So you can choose to change this up if you want to. Let's stick with skill base for both of them and back out of here. So that's the first part, the first step that you want to make sure that it's set up right. The second is to make sure you have your actions and that the skill is assigned on the action, on the individual action, so that the relevant rate is picked up. And the third step is to make sure that rates are set up on the role record, so that skill has been assigned and the rates are set up. So let's have a look at, so you can review the skill assignment related list, or you can edit the role record to access those rates. So if I go down here for Arthur, he's assigned both skills. So he's assigned the data import as well as the data export skill. For data import, his rate is 175 and 125. His data export rate is 200 and 125. And if I just scroll up here, we'll have a quick look at his billable and cost hourly rate. So this is role-based rate, and that is 250 and 125. For myself, if I scroll down to the skill assignment, I've only got the data export skill. I don't have the data import skill. So my rate is 185 and 75. We'll also look at the cost and the role base rate, so which is the billable hourly rate and cost hourly rate over here. So that's 285. I'll make sure to put these rates up as we're going through the different calculations. So back onto the project. So those 3 steps are done, let's assume. The next step is to see how those figures are being calculated after we've assigned the hours. So we'll look at the priority number 4, which is just based on the skill assignment. So whatever rates you've set up for the skill that is assigned to the role, to the skill assignment, that rate will be picked up. So because both roles have the data export skill, we'll use that as the first example here on the action data export. So I am the action owner. There are 6 hours scheduled billable, and it's calculating some figures for us here. But I'll go ahead and add Arthur as a contributor there. And I'll assign 3 hours to him, and we'll save that. So now this should calculate pretty much right away, and that's because I'm not using the role allocation automation settings. So if you're using the role allocation automation settings where role allocation records are generated, you might need to wait until the batch runs again based on the frequency that you have. In this case, that's disabled for me, and that's why it's been calculated right away. So I've got the hour scheduled value billable calculating to 1155, and that's so 3 hours for Arthur, and his rate was 200 for the data export skill, and 3 hours for myself, and the rate for data export was 185, and so that calculates out to 1155. For the cost rate, the 3 hours times 125, so that's Arthur's rate, plus 3 hours times 75, and that's my rate, my cost hourly rate for the data export skill, and that calculates to 600. So that's the that's the fourth priority, sort of the base priority. That's where the rates usually derive from, or at least the source of it, if you've assigned those rates on the skill assignment. We'll have a look at the next priority, and we're going to use the next action here, data import. And in that action, it's a mix of 2 priorities. It's priority 4 and priority 6. So priority 4 again, which is from the skill assignment that we just saw earlier, as well as priority 6, which is based on the hourly rate from the role record. In this instance, I don't have the data import skill assigned to me, and so the next step for it, which is priority number 5, which is rate adjustments on the role record, which I don't have in this case either, and so it goes to look for the last priority, which is priority number 6, which is the hourly rates on the role record. So I'm expecting the hourly rates from there to be picked up, and use as a fallback if a skill isn't assigned to me. So we'll go ahead and add the action owner and the contributor. So action owner set, and I'll go ahead and set Arthur as the contributor, put 3 hours in there again, and we'll save that. So that should still be calculating, and we'll do a refresh here, and that looks like it's been calculated now. So again, 3 hours for Arthur times 175. So that's his rate for the data import skill for the billable value, and 200 from the role record for myself. So that's 3 times 175 plus 3 times 200. That calculates out to 1125. And for the hours scheduled value cost, that is 3 hours times 125 for Arthur's data import skill, and 3 hours times 85, which is the cost hourly rate from my role record, and that calculates out to $630. So that is how the that priority works, number 4 and 6. All right, Let's move on to the the third scenario, and that is also the third priority, which is the skill-based rate adjustment that has dates. And so these these rate adjustments will be created from the role record. And the idea is that this rate adjustment applies to all projects, or sort of serves as the next step after or the higher priority over the skill assignments. So the rates, I'm expecting the rates over here to be overridden by the rate adjustment that we'll add in from the role record. So if I go back to the role records, for Arthur on the role record, I'll go here and go into the manage rates button. So this is the skill-based tab that we'll be updating. So I can choose to enter the figures here directly, but this will update the skill assignment, which is not something I want to do. I want to actually create the rate adjustment and specify a time frame that it should apply to. And for that, I can use the drop down here. I can set a start and end date. So I'll set a start date for Jan, end date for end of Jan, and the rates will be 225 and 135. And that will be for the data export skill. Go ahead and click add. So that's been added. We'll go ahead and save that. This will create the rate adjustment for us. And we'll do the same for myself. Go back here, go into manage rates, skill based, drop down here, set the start date, set the end date. And in this case, it'll be 175 and 60 for the data export skill. And yep, done. So I'll go ahead and save that. So now, because we've made a rate change, this is one scenario where you'll want to do a forced financials recalculation. So if I edit the project here, I've got a checkbox here called forced financials recalculation, and I want to just make sure I check that and save that. So this will run a process in the background that will make sure that the new rates that you've added in will be accounted for. So that is one scenario. Anytime there's a rate change, whether that's on the project, so if you've changed like the billing rate or cost rate, if you've updated the rates on the role record or the skill assignment, or if you've added a rate adjustment, whether you've deleted them, removed them, all of those changes require you to run the financials recalculation. And so if I just refresh my page, it should have been updated by now. And I edit the project. Yep, so forced financials recalculation has been unchecked. That means it's ran successfully. And I can see that some of those rates have been updated. So let's have a look at how those are being calculated. So the new rates are taking into account the new rates over here. So because the actions start and end date is within the rate adjustments start and end date, it's utilizing that rate over there. So over here, I've got the it's calculating out to 1200 and 585. So let's have a look at this one first. So 3 hours times 225 for Arthur, plus 3 hours times 175 for myself, and that's 1200. So that's the billable values. And then onto the cost values. So 3 hours times 135 plus 3 hours times 60, which is 585. And that's the cost value. So that's how the rate adjustment will override that skill assignment value that we had. All right, so moving on to the last scenario, which is again on this action. And in this case, we'll use the higher priority in this case or from the previous one. So priority number 2, which is going to be skill-based override without any dates. So this applies indefinitely, and we'll have a look at how those figures are calculated. And this will also override the values over here, regardless of the rate adjustment from the role record. So I'll go ahead and on the project, I'll go into the manage rates page, and go ahead and I will add in, we're adding it without date. So yep, so we'll then set 150 and 50. And for Arthur, we'll set 275 and 150. And I'll go ahead and save that. Again, I've done a rate change. I need to make sure I click the force financial. So I'll go ahead and save that. Going to rate adjustments, we'll see that those 2 rate adjustments have been created. I go back here and we'll refresh. All right, so we'll go ahead and log an hour for Arthur and for myself. So I'll go ahead and put in an hour there for myself. I'll set it to and time, and we'll do the same for Arthur as well. Go to the action, go into the time lock. So we'll select this one and this one. All right, so over here you can see that the billable hourly rate and cost hourly rate is being derived from the skill-based override rate adjustment, which is the rate adjustment from the project. And that's the 150 and 50 rate that we had set up for myself. And for Arthur, if I go here, it's using the, again, the skill-based override rate adjustment, 275 and 150, and it is taking higher priority or precedent over the rate adjustments that we created from the role records for the different skills. Now, if I were to add in a rate adjustment for a specific time frame within the project, so if I were to go back to the project, and if I were to create rate adjustments from here for a specific time frame, those rates would be given priority because that's the topmost priority number one. That is the skill-based rates in mission control. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at support@preco.com, and we have a lot of resources as listed over here. Yeah, and thank you very much, and see you in the next one.